So this is the first of two videos that will show my top 5 favorite early access games that I've played this year and my top 5 favorite full release games that I've played this year. There's a few things to mention before I get started. Number one, not all the games that I mention will be from this year or released this year. They're just the games that I enjoyed most this year. Number two, I'll be mentioning all my hours played in these games, but since these games are early access games, the hours might be a little bit lower than people would expect. There's just sometimes not enough content to justify playing more. And number three, a lot of the games I played this year left early access, unfortunately. So games like Grounded or Vampire Survivors or Rogue Legacy 2, which would go on this list, I can't put on this list anymore. So this list is a little less stacked than I'd like it to be, but it's a list nonetheless of games that I thoroughly enjoyed. All right, for number 5, it's Ember Knights. With 2.6 hours played, for now, a simple roguelike with simple yet satisfying combat that you can tell just by playing will be a much better game with more and more content. Just like any roguelike, you'll get stronger and stronger throughout the run and then come back to base camp to upgrade and look at new unlocks. The progression systems currently in the game are quite basic, but it is early access. As it stands, there are a few different weapons to use and multiple abilities that you can unlock in-game, which make fights far more dynamic. The run I had while recording this might have been my most satisfying run yet, as I felt like the abilities I had chosen were really complementing the run nicely, as well as my weapon choice. The art style is nice, the animations are smooth, and moving the character around and fighting the enemies feels great. Doom Turtle, the developers have done a good job so far, and I can't wait for more. I also want to mention that this game is 1 to 4 player co-op, which I haven't tried yet, but I am excited to when I can. For number 4, we have Ready or Not with 8.5 hours played. It's an intense, realistic shooter that pits you against AI that knows what they're doing. Ready or Not challenges you to enter different areas with different objectives to complete and puts a big emphasis on taking things slow and punishing you for playing it like a traditional first-person shooter. Crosshair placement is important, but what's also important is equipping yourself with the right gadgets and equipment for the job. What's better is this game is much more fun with friends. Working together to complete the objectives can be very rewarding and funny at the same time. I like the potential of Ready or Not. Since the last time I played, they've already updated the game with more content and modes, and I can almost see this becoming a very popular title towards its full release. The downside for a lot of people right now is the price, so I'd wait until Void Interactive, who've done a great job so far, finish the game before making a purchase, unless, of course, you have the cash to spend. Alright, number 3 is Soulstone Survivors with 9.7 hours of gameplay. I loved Vampire Survivors, but holy shit, Soulstone Survivors is very rapidly becoming my favorite between the two. Maybe it's the art style or the gameplay differences, or maybe it's the whole package combined, but Soulstone Survivors just feels right up my alley in comparison. I really like the meta progression in Soulstone Survivors, and I can't wait for them to make it even deeper. Progression is a big thing for me in games, and Soulstone gets it right for me. Having multiple layers of progression with multiple things needed to be done and collected to unlock certain runes or weapons, it just feels awesome. They've also slightly innovated on the core loop of a survivors game with the addition of a dash and some abilities that you aim with the mouse. Subtle changes that make the gameplay much more interactive, which despite the laid-back nature of these games is actually very welcomed. And I love all the different abilities and level up rewards too. There's already so many with so many more to come, which leaves so much room for creative builds. This is definitely a top game in the Survivor subgenre for sure. Quick side note, the developers, Gamesmithing Limited, have another game coming out in 2023 called Rogue Soulstone, which you can check out on Steam and wishlist if you want as well. For number 3, we have Deadlink. With 2.9 hours played, it's an FPS roguelite that takes elements from different FPS greats like Doom and puts them into a roguelite setting, and in my opinion, Groovy Entertainment fucking nails it. I'm a big mechanics guy, you know, like how does the character move and shoot, how does the recoil feel, how does it feel to dash, block, parry, etc, etc. All those mechanics need to feel right to me, and Deadlink gets them all right. This game is just fun, it's fast-paced, action-packed, and challenging. None of the elements of gameplay feel annoying or frustrating or unfair. I feel like even in early access, the balance is already so close to being perfect. Progression is surface level for now, and I'm not sure how deep they'll go with it, but for now it's passable. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's the exact type of music you would want to accompany the gameplay in the background. I've completed the first difficulty, and when I went to record footage, I tried the second one that was recently released, but wasn't able to finish it in the couple runs that I did. I have some subjective complaints about the graphical settings, but they're not worth talking about right now. All I know is that this game has a ton of potential. The early access game I enjoyed the most this year was definitely RoboQuest, another FPS roguelite that is in the same lane as Deadlink for me, where it just gets the mechanics and the pacing right. I've clocked 14.5 hours on it, and that's only because of a lack of level variety right now. The variety elsewhere, however, is awesome. It definitely takes inspiration from games before it, Borderlands being one of them with the amount of weapon variety, but there's also variety in the skills and abilities, different stat boosts and choices that you can make throughout your run. The bosses in this game are surprisingly fun and hectic. There's a roller coaster boss fight and a boss fight that removes the floor underneath you, and many more that I won't spoil. The one concern I do have is that the enemies are just robots. Now, for someone like me, that's okay because I find fun in the chaos and the satisfying gameplay. But for someone else, killing an enemy with no discernible personality or faction might become a little boring. I'm not sure how else to describe it, or whether that's actually a problem for some people or not. There is a story, none of which I've paid attention to if I'm being honest, but the gameplay is what should sell you, and the gameplay is solid. Rise Up Studios have been consistently releasing updates, so I'm excited for the full release, which is stated for December this year. This game is also playable with up to one other friend right now. I'm not sure if there are plans to make it 1 to 4 player, but that would be awesome if they did. So while the list isn't as stacked as I'd like it to be, a lot of early access games came out of early access this year, which meant that I couldn't put them on this list. But the ones that I did put on the list, I genuinely like and I feel like have a lot of potential. But that's it for me. See you next time.